Greetings, ladies and melogers, and welcome to this latest edition of Re-TVOS, where I take old stories I've narrated and update them to modern audio standards. This particular story is called Longevity, written by Shank Cushion. The Mirren and I were good folks. They're quiet, serious, hard-working little buggers, loyal to the core. Surprising depth of emotion for ant people. Most insectoids you meet tend to be a little, cold. I got stranded here 60 years ago. The Mirren and I have no space tech, other than the occasional derelict that comes flaming down onto the planet. They never put many of it together, and I'm not savvy enough to try. So, I was stranded for good. At first, I didn't even know the planet was inhabited. I'd been scrounging for food on the surface, praying that whatever berry, fruit, or tuber I was wolfing down wouldn't leave me some kind of bubbling oil slick on the grass before morning. Then, I came across this field, just chock full of type of small melon vines that I'd already eaten from, and I sang praises. I was on my fifth melon. They were only about the size of an apple, when I heard a quick rustling and a loud clacking behind me. I spun around to find myself facing a 4-foot-tall ant standing on its rear legs. It was glossy black, with a metal-tipped spear leveled at me and large mandibles clacking in an obvious threat. After an attempt to explain that I'd suffered a crash and a mild stabbing, and maybe a bit of a scuffle involving several of their soldier folk, I was carried, bound, to their matriarch. 6 long decades ago. Since then, I've become a major figure in the court of the Melonian dynasty. They call me the Advisor. I am, to them, a living embodiment of their history, and the wisest creature their enclave has ever encountered. Today, the matriarch found me as I sat on top of the enclave's Warren Hill, watching the stars. This was not Melanot, the matriarch that had first accepted me into the enclave. This was young Smithwellen, her 9th descent replacement. She was next to me for a moment without communicating. After a moment, her right primary arm tapped lightly on my shoulder. It would be difficult to estimate how many such taps I felt in my life here. My attention secured, her simple hands began to weave intricate signs, primary arms taking up most of the activity, the secondary arms assisting on complex points, and her lower arms generally indicating tone, although I'm not sure the Mirren themselves are aware of this tendency. Right now, the slightest wavering, loose stance, and the limbs indicated uncertainty. "Advisor, what do you see in the stars?" In return, I simply spoke. Apparently, our speech is decipherable to their hearing. Their communication is at least partly based on pheromones and shared genetics, so my human ears wouldn't cut it. Over the years, the Enclave had developed a sign language for speaking to me. "We are still in the fair time, matriarch. The stars of the dew melon have not yet crossed the dust melon, so the dry years will not come for several more harvests. The Enclave should have little to fear from them, due to the amount of fruit we've dried since your second ascent unit's time." Sweetmelon's tertiary arm stilled, hanging at ease. She signed again. "That is good news, in general, for the Enclave, and for you as well." "It is." As we sat beneath the stars, I considered the life I'd led since my crash. First, I was a curiosity, then a resource, then a friend. And for the rest of the time, I've been an arbiter of continuity for a people. I knew xenoastronomy from the education I'd gotten prior to my life being rerouted. I charted the local moons and constellations, and over the decades, I'd managed to piece together most of the climate of the region. 4 generations previously, I'd correctly deduced that the reduction in rainfall and consequently melon harvests was a result of a system alignment that brought our region into a full light of the local star. It took 2 years to convince that matriarch, Melancetta, that the rains would indeed hold off and that storages would be dug to capture what did fall. I was right, though, and I like to think the Enclave survived in a large part thanks to my warning. It apparently impressed Melancetta so much that her genes encoded me as part of the Enclave's ancestral heritage as an invaluable resource. Each generation after that has had a remarkable reverence for my input. From the corner of my eye, I noticed Sweetmelon's tertiary arms fidgeting again. She had a question that made her uncomfortable. I silently thanked Providence that those appendages were generally used as stabilizers and grip enhancers while climbing, and functioned semi-autonomously like an octopus's tentacles. Apparently, in the leap to sapience, the Myrmidai's brain began to equate thought and emotion as analogous to navigating tunnels. And so the limbs reacted. That's what I like to think anyway, and at my age I'm not looking to challenge a belief that works. "What is bothering you, matriarch?" Sweetmelon glanced quickly at me, her mandibles clacking shut in surprise. I smiled. If you're the arbiter of wisdom for a people, you have to keep an air of mystery about yourself. And one great way to do it is to play it foreknowledge. Sweetmelon began to sign, somewhat slowly. "Advisor, what is the lifespan of your species?" It was my turn to be surprised. Generally, the Myrmidai hadn't seemed to consider that I'd die. I thought I'd sort of been considered like one of the old melon trees. I would just be around to provide for an indefinite future. "That depends on a lot of things, matriarch." She reached into a little pouch at her side and produced a faded, dog-eared picture. It was my university photo from the year I'd been scheduled to transfer to the central facility of our school's network. Got halfway there, then an uncharted cloud of micrometeorites tore the transport ship apart. I managed to eject in an escape pod. I only saw that picture ready. It was, I'd been told, considered a treasure of the Enclave. "That's an old picture, taken a lifetime ago." Sweetmelon nodded and signed. "You have degraded considerably since this time." "Yeah, thanks, ma'am." "It is fact. However, your thanks is appreciated. What concerns the Enclave is how much further you may degrade before you become inert." And cocked an eyebrow. "It's hard to say. It depends a lot on my genes. Some of my people live well over 100 years. Some are taken down before they see 40. Most of the time, though, we get into our mid-80s to early 90s. You have reported your age to some units of the Enclave as 82. Do you anticipate your endpoint as being near?" As she said the last bit, her entire body drooped slightly. It was, just as with a human, a sign of sadness. It was rare amongst the Myrmidae. Usually, it was only seen upon the failure of a key crop or a death of a matriarch. To see it attached to my status was both sobering and deeply touching. I took stock. I was in bed earlier these days, but out of bed earlier too. I ran out of energy faster than I did when I was a pup, but I wasn't all achy and rickety. Well, not most of the time. And I hadn't been sick in years. I got a lot of activity, helping with the melons and growing a few other supplemental plants in my own garden. I ate healthy, no choice there. It was pretty much fruit and veggies or nothing, and drank lots of water. "Sweetmelon, you don't need to worry. I've seen 9 iterations of your matriarchal line, and I will see the next one as well. As I've missed your ascent units, I will miss you. As I've guided you, I will guide your descendant units. I will remain with the Enclave for a good while longer." Her tertiary arm still, and she straightened into a pose that reassured peace. As a meteor blazed between the stars, she tracked it with her eyes and all 3 of her left arms. It was almost childlike. As the other Myrmidae gathered around the crest of the hill to watch as more meteors flared to ash in the upper atmosphere, I felt a tap on my shoulder. "This is good. In general, for the Enclave, and for this unit certainly. We prosper through your years." I smiled. It wasn't a life I'd chosen, but it had been far from wasted. End. Story number 2. Above All, Human, written by Erratic Architect. When humans entered the galactic stage, it changed things forever. Each of the 6 great empires attempted to gain the favor of these peculiar sentients. If the humans joined any one of them, it would have increased that empire's hold, both militarily and politically. But for all that, the humans were agreeable. They denied becoming a vassal to any of them. At first, this angered the 6. But the slowly coalescing 7th Empire did something surprising. they shared. Their medicines were adapted to other species. Their technologies were mass-produced and merged with that of the Empires. Their communication networks, the internet, was not just open to all, but made available as quickly as the humans could build network stations after network station. Their ships appeared in the battlefield, not as conquerors, but as emergency crews who would help and save as many as they could, no matter the side. Their diplomats found the compromise in any argument and repaired relationships torn asunder millennia ago. Their planners created precise and efficient systems of economics, housing, and even ecosystems, no matter the planet, and no matter the challenges. Their explorers mapped theories through uncharted parts of the galaxy, places previously deemed too dangerous to explore. Their scientists pushed the boundaries of what was thought possible, even in the darkest of nights. The humans had shined a light on everything they touched. This wouldn't have been so surprising if the other empires had looked more closely at human history. A human empire was one that brought its stability, order, and advances to every place it touched, even beyond its borders. Even with their wars and their social issues, humans ever strove to be the best they could be, bringing everything else with them without even trying. The Seventh Empire became the prominent member of the galaxy. But the Third Empire, that of the Beslan, took issue with the humans. The Beslan were aggressive expanders and conquerors. The altruism and cooperation that the humans showed only strengthened the other empires and made it more difficult for the Beslan to lash out in the ways they were used to. And with technology far better suited to battle than the humans had ever managed to accomplish, an all-out war was in their favor. The humans were pushed back, slowly but surely, to their home planet, Earth. It was there in their final hour that the humans' true strength showed, and they won the war. There was no secret weapon or sudden winning tactic on the humans' part. The Beslan were always better suited to war. Rather, fleet after fleet of ships arrived from the other empires, from the smallest Terramix to the largest Rayquans. It was the first time in 500,000 years of history that so many empires had joined together to fight in unison, and it was a death blow to the Third Great Empire. The humans and their Seventh Empire had changed things permanently. No longer were the petty squabbles or selfish hoarding. The humans had shown everyone that if they but tried, they could be better, that they too could reach out and touch the impossible. Humans were never the strongest or the smartest. They instead wielded the most unlikely of weapons. It was small and simple, mighty, yet humble. But above all, it was human. Hope. End of story. I would like to thank our T5 members and patrons, Casper Arnholtz, John Creighton, Vidmori, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.